Hello and welcome to the first Rocky Brand live stream of 2022. Can't believe we're into a new year and a way to look at, well, let's see what people are saying the design trends are going to be for 2022 and whether they're any good or not, because sometimes the design trends which have been chosen for the year I think are often not the best, and I'm always puzzled as to why they are there. Hey T-Phil, how you doing? Hi David, thanks for joining. Happy New Year. If you're watching this on a catch-up, sort of in the summer, Happy New Year to you as well. So we're going to be looking at some highest band logo trends. I've chosen 4 websites to go through. Just to see if there's any differences with them all, or if they're all in agreement, because that often fascinates me as well, is whether the people who are talking about design trends and logo design trends, because you tend to get videos and articles on graphic design trends and then ones on logo design trends. We're going to be looking at logo design trends today. And it's just interesting to me whether they're in agreement or if they're entirely different. Sometimes when I've looked through these things, they've almost copied one another. You know, the trends are in the same order and they're saying some of the same stuff. It happens quite a lot. Maybe there'll be one originator who writes the article and then everybody else just kind of jumps on that and creates their own blog post to get some traffic. So be interesting to see what we have here today. So we're going to do that. We're going to be doing a catch-up review of David's logo. David's on the call today. So we're going to be taking a look at his 10 Deuce Poker logo and see where he's gotten to with that. And I will show the previous version as well, so that you can see any changes or differences that he's made to that since the feedback last time. And also, you may have seen in the community tab that I am starting up a Discord server to try and bring people into to try to build more of a community aspect to the Rock Your Brand live stream YouTube community. Somewhere where people can kind of hang out, share their work, ask questions, and hopefully people will be able to help one another. I obviously can't be there the whole time, but I will obviously be in that server. And so, there will be access to me to ask me some questions within reason. But I thought it'd be a good thing to do. Discord may be brand new to some of you or a lot of you. Like any platform, there is a learning curve to it. It was generally developed for gamers to communicate whilst they're playing games. So it was for typing messages and for using audio so they can chat with one another whilst they're gaming. But it's started to develop into being used by more and more people, businesses, organizations, and stuff like that. So we'll take a look at that later on. And anyone who's live on the call, I'll give them an invite link and you can jump in and have a look around, leave any, there's different channels that you can leave messages in. And the first test of that will be to see if I've set it up properly and people can actually get into the server. So this is very much a work in progress, so we'll see how that goes. So let's jump in and look at these, look at what people are suggesting are going to be the logo trends for 2022. And please, if you've got any thoughts yourself on any of these trends that we're going to look at today, post in the chat. I want this to be a two-way conversation if we can, to get your feedback. So I've just picked 4 sites at random. I've not picked them for any particular reason. I did a Google search for logo trends 2022. One thing I have done is I've gone through each of them just to see when these articles were written, and pretty much all of them were written in November of last year. So, 2 months before the end of 2021, predicting what will be the trends for 2022. And what I want to say first of all is that when I'm creating logos, I very rarely will follow a trend. Trends can be good for the fact that they're trends. So if people are really into it and you create something which is part of that trend, you're probably going to get more attention. But on the flip side, a trend is just that. It's a trend, so it'll only last a certain amount of time, and then it'll fall out of fashion and look dated. So when it comes to logo design, you need to be very careful about using trends. And it depends on what the type of trend is. There are some, and we'll see when we go through this, sometimes you see something that says it's a trend. And for me personally, I don't see it as a trend. It's been around all the time. People are constantly doing them. It might mean that, they're seeing more of it, which technically is a trend if you're seeing more of that thing. But it's not something necessarily new. It's just, it's kind of caught onto a buzz. When I'm creating logos, I definitely create logos that fit the brand and fit the are going to appeal to the target demographic that they're looking for. And you want to try and create something which is going to last the client quite a bit of time. Logos are always tweaked and developed a little bit, but what you don't want to create a logo that has to be completely redone because you used a trend and that trend has fallen out of favor and the brand logo now looks really, really outdated and old. So you're going to have to completely redo the whole thing. So you want to be careful when you do that. And I suppose one of the things as well actually is let me just find it. So Pantone color of the. So Pantone's color of the year, for example, which is very Perry, is what Pantone are saying is their color of the year, and so if lots of people start using Very Perry, then that will start to trend, and you'll see it a lot. Someone that I watch and follow on YouTube, and I've had the pleasure of talking with them, is Phil Van Dusen. Some of you may be subscribers to Phil's channel. Phil does a yearly graphic design trends video, and I noticed from having a look at that video when he released it that his background lighting was Pantone color of the year, Very Perry. He didn't mention it really, I don't think, but it was very subtle and in the background, which I thought was a very clever touch to highlighting Pantone's color of the year. But I've never really paid attention to Pantone's color of the year. I use Pantone colors all the time, but I've never really paid attention to their color of the year because when I'm working on a project, it's mostly brand identity projects, and so I don't want to use a color which, is only for that year. And then in 2023, Pantone will say what new color is their color of the year. So I'm very much a case of using styles and colors and typography that fits the brand, not what is hot at the moment. So I go through these trends with a pinch of salt, and some of them are really cool. But just be aware of your client's audience or your business's audience if you're working on your logo or your brand, to make sure that it's hitting all the right spots and you're not just following a trend and it really doesn't suit your brand at all. Hey Macheko, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining the stream. So let's take a look down here. So I'll sort of have a skim read of this paragraph here. So this one says that they asked their community of designers from around the world which logo design trends they think will be big in 2022. So this is been collated then from designers and what they see as coming forward. So let's take a look. So number one, retro rubber hose logos. That's a term I've not really heard before. So you've seen rubber hose imagery. If you've ever played Cuphead or Bendy, or if you've ever simply watched a cartoon produced in the 1920s or 30s, you've seen rubber hose animation. And in 2022, you're going to see a whole lot more in logos. So here's some examples of that. What I'll do is I'll see if I can zoom in to see if I can get Chrome to zoom in a bit so that you guys are getting this as big as possible. I have actually seen more of this sort of style recently, over the past year or so, especially in some of the forums. There was someone in the Logo Geek forums on Facebook who had been, I think it was a logo for his own design business, and I really, really liked it. I'm kind of a bit of a fan of the retro style where it suits. Again, I'll probably say that a lot, where it suits. But I'd never heard of it called the rubber hose aesthetic. But it does look like, sort of the 20s and 30s. A lot of half-tone textures and that sort of muted colours, really sort of dull-looking colours. So stuff like this, where you've got half-tone and there's like a colour shift past the outline to make it look like the printing plates aren't quite aligned, give it that really old-fashioned look. And it'll work for certain brands, but it definitely won't work for others. So you probably wouldn't want to use it for a leading tech brand, because it wouldn't really fit. But if it was a games company, who are, that's in the tech space, but if it was a games company like Cuphead, or the game Cuphead, this would work because it's quirky. It gives a fun vibe to it. So if you've got a brand which is, maybe got sort of an aesthetic that you want to give across, which is retro and fun, then this is going to be a really, really good one. David's saying, I'm a songwriter, a folky kind of songwriter, and most of the stuff I've written uses principles that have been around for hundreds of years, mainly simplicity and structure. My recent introduction to logo design taught me that design theory works in a similar manner. That's how I go about it. It makes it easier for me to keep going with it. Yeah, it's like most skills. There are core elements that have been around for a long, long time, and just, people innovate on that. So people innovate in music and people innovate in design and try new things. And generally, I may be right, I may be wrong, but from my experience, the technology that comes in is what helps a lot of that innovation. It makes stuff easier to do, it can automate things, and I think it would be, the same for music, when synthesizers came in sort of late 70s, early 80s, and, you start to get all these synth bands popping up. They weren't there before that technology came in. With design, you've got a lot of new filters and 3D software and, all of the effects that you can now do, and a lot of it you can do on your phone. And so people are, mixing older design equipment and technology with newer stuff and innovating in that space and in that way. So yeah, you're right. You've got to, use the core skills that have probably been around for a long, long time and build on that to create your own style, or just to, create something that you've seen and you want to copy. Blurred logos. In 2022, that's going to be a much lower priority. You're supposed to be able to read a logo's text, right? In 2022, that's going to be a much lower priority as designers experiment with blur effects to emphasize fluidity and movement rather than focusing solely on readability. Okay. I would say you could probably get away with that in graphic design if you're creating a design piece, maybe, a magazine spread or something like that. But I'd be wary of using that effect on a logo if it means it makes it hard to read, kind of defeats the purpose of it a little bit for me. But I have seen this effect. I mean, I can read clear water there. It's pretty easy. But if it was completely blurred out, I mean, I think I have seen, a few where they are completely blurred out, but the actual name of the business has been blur or something like that. So it fits really well. So that's, going to be interesting. I'm not going to play any videos in case there's any music on them. And I end up getting a copyright strike for music. So we'll just look at the still images which are on there. So this is some Pentagram stuff from the Design Studio Pentagram. So there is some blur going on in there, but it is coming through into a final sharp, finished piece. So blur is being used in a way. Yeah, you see here you can still read it. So as an effect, it's quite nice. But you have to take into account as well all of the different situations your logo is going to be used in. So can this type of effect be replicated everywhere? If you're going to get some embroidery done, how do you, the blur is going to be quite hard to look good in embroidery, for example. So you need to kind of take into account where you're going to be using the logo as well. Some stuff can look amazing on screen, and then when it comes to trying to get it printed, it's just a no-go, and you run into real problems. So this one here is just using 3 versions of the logo with different amounts of transparency, and they just offset them to create that blur effect rather than using a blur filter on there. I quite like that text, actually. That's really nice. We're only on 3, so we might not go through all 4 websites today because I don't want to take up too much time. Stretched and continuous lettering. Blurred logos aren't the only kind of distortion we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of in 2022. Designers are also playing with stretched and continuous lettering for a boundary-less, infinite look and feel. This I have seen a little bit. I'm just checking the chat here. Esteban's like, first trend, downward thumb. And David's saying, in other words, technology will not make a bad logo work, and neither will technology make a bad song work. Correct. A bad song is a bad song, and a bad design is a bad design. You can use all the best tools, still going to sound and look bad. And Esteban's, I think that's a shrug emoji for the second trend. So the third one is stretched lettering. Again, I have seen some of this around. Not enough of it for me to see it being a trend, but that may change in 2022. More and more people may start using it. I'm wondering if maybe the reason for this trend is that you now get, it's not something we've looked at yet, I'd say, and it's maybe something we should look at, variable fonts. So with those fonts, you can use sliders and it will stretch and scale the glyphs, the letters and numbers inside that font. So you can kind of, mix up all different thicknesses and widths of all the different letters. It's really fun to play with. So if you want to have a look for variable fonts, you can do that. And it also means then that you're, it's one file that's controlled mathematically through these sliders, and it's not 11 point, 12 point. There's so many different variables on them. Don't know how you design them, because I'd imagine that'd be quite difficult, because if you can make them any size and squish them and stuff, getting things to match up and look good when you're reading it may be difficult. So these first 2 examples here are sort of the kind of thing that I've seen. Not so much these ones here. I wouldn't say they're in the same boat. They look more sort of standard to me. So I'm just trying to find titles. I don't know if we're on into the next trend or if this is different here. Well, let's just scroll through and let's just have a look at these. So these are more sort of script type fonts. Quite like this Haba Ba. It's quite a nice, fun one. 3D effect going on here with some depth. I'm not entirely sure if it's meant to say ACSG or ASG. And you've got all these different accents on this Totec one. McBling. Right. So I'm just looking at Esteban in the chat. He's being now clear with his voting on these trends, which is great. David's saying the stretch lettering hinders the legibility. Doesn't like it personally. So that's it. You've got to be. Sometimes things are created purely from a design experimental purpose, and maybe legibility in that isn't really the point. It's to kind of push boundaries of design and make something that just is visually appealing. But again, we're kind of talking about logos, and so you do need to be able to read fairly easily what the brand is. 2000s nostalgia is something we've explored on the blog before. Last time we wondered if it was too soon to start incorporating throwbacks to the aughts aesthetic and design. Now the answer is clear, absolutely not. Take a look at the style was first dubbed McBling by Evan Collins in 2006. I don't like this kind of stuff. It's kind of not for everyday brands anyway. So saying McBling is an aesthetic that embraces and exaggerates the stylistic features of the 2000s. It's a mixed bag of contrast to sum up the highs and lows. Yeah, I'm gonna give this trend. This trend gets a thumbs down from me. It's not for me at all. Let's just go past that trend. Scribbles and sketches. While some designers are riffing on simpler times in their logo designs by incorporating aesthetics from past decades, others are going in another direction for their nostalgia. Shaky, scribbly, childlike art. These look like something out of my sketchbook. I'm just kind of sketching ideas and go, that'll do. I'll present that to the client. That could be a nice easy moneymaker if this is the trend to go for in 2022. Is just scribble some rough concepts and go, there you go. Put some typography underneath it, and away we go. Again, it's going to fit the aesthetic will fit some brands, but again, I'm not sure about this. I'm very much a refined, clean lines kind of person, so this stuff makes me kind of a little bit feels a bit awkward to me. In 2022, expect to see more scribbles. Expect to see more logos that have that rough, unfinished look in contrast to cleaner, more produced logos you've seen in the past few years. So I suppose that's the stuff I like. This style is raw yet sophisticated and simplistic. And for a world that's ready to simplify and shed all the burdens from the past and looks towards a more optimistic future, simplicity is exactly what the doctor ordered. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. So, I mean, this, for example, this foot shop one, when we've got the clean sans serif type, and then we're using the shapes and the scribbles as an accent for it, and, it gives movement and motion to it and gives energy to it. So I'd agree with that. Again, I would need to see it in, whatever situation it's going to be in. So that was trend number 5. Trend number 5 gets a thumbs down from Esteban. David saying my sketchbook looks like a 1-year-old's pampering collection. I'm not the greatest at sketching, and it doesn't bother me because I'm really only sketching to get ideas out of my head and onto the page. So maybe, the more childlike they look, the more natural the process is. I think if you're using your sketchbook when you're at the idea generation stage and you're really taking your time with it, that's maybe not the best way to kind of I like to try to get through as many ideas as I possibly can, rather than spending time to create, let's call them Instagram looking sketchbooks. You know, you've seen the ones on Instagram where it's like all laid out and nice, and they've probably put grids over everything. You know, it's not what I do. When you're a logo designer, time is money. You know, so you've got to try to get through things and work your way to the best idea, rather than, you know, making okay ideas look good for presentation, you know, not for the client. Experimenting with line thickness. So I won't read the introduction there. I quite like that papier one. That's quite nice. Kind of making it look like some of the pages are folded. That's quite nice. And I actually quite like this Luna as well. It's fat and chunky with the thin sort of crossbar and diagonal. I'm not sure how well that would work at really small sizes, but it's for Luna Coffee, so that U actually looks a bit like a coffee cup. But you can do, that's where the variable fonts come in as well, because you can, you know, do that thick and thin and test stuff out and see how it looks really quite quickly. We've got a rockin' number 6 from Esteban, which is good. So 1 out of 6 ain't bad so far. Let's see. This one looks like it's like a reflection in water. Not sure if that's for a brand. It looks like it's for a brand. Don't know if that's the actual how the final logo looks. But it's interesting. Kind of looks like they've just used like the warp tool or the smudge tool and kind of smudged the letters and kind of moved them in a bit. It does bring it to life. It gives it some life and some movement, which is cool. Some different types of lines going on in this one here. Like the zebra cube one was a bit. I don't think I can stop this because it's an animated GIF. But I kind of like this one. I like the NXT animal one. I like that digital sort of effect going on there. Then in this one here, they've used that thick and thin to bring this monogram together, this A and F. So they've obviously flipped the F for Fern. They've reflected it horizontally. So you've got quite a clear looking A. The F you have to look for a little bit, but when you see it next to the name, then it makes sense that it's there. 321 Catering are going with a barcode, and some sort of pixel font, which works really well with the barcode. That's works quite nice. So white space finds imagery. Number 7, white space in your logo, also known as negative space, is often just blank. That blank space can do a lot of things, like create a setting for your logo's focal point and balance its composition to avoid looking cluttered. This is one which I thought might come up because I'm starting to see negative space getting used a lot more in logos again. I do like clever negative space in logos. It can be difficult to do. Sometimes you have a topic or an industry sector where you have an idea and you go, that's going to be perfect for that. But sometimes you're trying to create a logo and you'd love to do a negative space thing for it, but you just can't seem to find one that doesn't, it's got to look seamless, just like it was always meant to be there. I see a lot of negative space logos that they're a bit clumsy, and they're like trying to crowbar this into the logo when it's just really subtle. It works really, really well. So this one here, this NGP one, I really, really like. I like that, there's nothing in this bottom corner, but there's enough taken out that you clearly see that negative space rectangle for framing images. I really, really like that. It's so simple, but really, really clean. I like that a lot. Then you've got the Delish Coffee here. I suppose there is negative space in here a little bit, but I don't think it's as effective as the NGP one here. David's saying that the Papier one is really nice, and Esteban likes number 7. He's put always, probably because it's negative space. So this is, again, this kind of stuff that I like. Your logo has to have a certain amount of weight to it in order to, let enough of that background image come through so that you've still got enough balance that you can see the logo, but you're also seeing enough of the image to make out what it is in the background. You're not seeing all of that because I am actually zoomed in. So let me just, my mic's right in my face, so I can't see all of my keys. So let me just see if I can zoom back out so we can see all of that. So yeah, that's quite nice as well. That works well. So these are all using logos now and having imagery coming through. So, I mean, when I'm creating logos, I'll often try this out with logos anyway. It's not something that I'm doing as part of a trend. But if you're creating a logo, it's when you're creating mock-ups and you want to present it to the client, show the client how versatile the logo is. If you've created something which is quite chunky, then one of the obvious things that you can try and do is, overlay it and either cut the logo out so that you see an image through that, or you place the logo onto an image and have the image kind of showing through in all the gaps. So that's a trend I like as well. We're getting into trends now that I can get on board with. The first few wasn't so sure about. 8, a groovy revival. One recurring theme in logo design trends year after year is logos seeking aesthetic references from the groovy years of the 70s. This trend is retro yet futuristic, kitsch yet sleek. Bright garish colours are contrasted with minimal layouts while fonts melt into curvy letter forms or bubble up into softy styles. You sort of see that all the time. I've got quite a few fonts in my library which are have that 70s aesthetic. I've actually used a few of them in 2021 for a couple of projects which I was trying to come up with ideas for the logo, and I really liked them, but the client wasn't too keen on it having that 70s sort of retro effect, even though I felt they had some of that they could really leverage with the brand. They wanted something that just looked modern and no throwbacks, which was a shame because I think it would have added a nice fun element to it. Crypto Artismo saying, I just made one. What do you think? You just made a logo? Crypto Artismo. So yeah, you kind of got, these bright colours and sort of the roundedness gives that 70s effect to it. Layered elements, another one of the key logo design trends we'll see rise to prominence is layered elements. Designers are exploring geometric forms, fonts, and colour blends. If you want to, you can. If you want to submit the logo, you can do it through the. If you're looking for critique on it, you can submit it to me for critique on the channel through the Rock Your Brand website. If you hang about in the stream, I'll be bringing that website up later to ask other people to submit. So that would be cool. Layered logos, again, can be hit and miss. So this one here, this Absolute one, gives me a very 80s sort of vibe to it. This So Nice one, again, there's layers, and then there's also kind of layered, which is slightly different. This one here, this sort of vector effect. Like it's almost like it's been image traced. You see quite a lot, sort of in sports badges and things like that. Quite like this splendid homemade bakery one. I kind of like the simple shapes that are going on in the background. I can still read the text. It gets a little bit busy around the little circles here, but I kind of like the pastel tones in the background, and I like the shapes that go with the sans serif here, the really clean sans serif, which is used for the text. I like that one. This style here, this Nina Roderick one, I've seen quite a bit. I've seen a few people in Logo Geek post up logos for critique with this sort of style so this is kind of bringing in that scribble style a little bit, where you've got sort of an outline, and it was actually quite close to this actually. It was a single line almost of a face. I think it was for a beauty brand, and then blobs of colour just kind of below that scribble line. So I've seen that before, and I'm pretty sure I've done one or two logos like that, but many, many years ago. I'm trying to think what it was now, but it was definitely a long time ago. I've done some stuff like this in the past. I'm not sure that this type here, the colour specialist and hairstylist, sits very well. It feels like it's in the wrong place, or it maybe feels too constrained. Everything here is quite open, and then this feels like it's been lodged into that empty space here underneath the signature. It just feels a bit strange to me. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think, whether you think this colour specialist is in a good place or it could be better. David saying the Viking looks great, but the detail would make it struggle at small sizes. More than likely, especially on the, I'm just sitting about half a metre away from my screen, and I can just make out the words which says Fortress Brew Works on there. But yeah, so that's going to, at small sizes, that's going to disappear. They may have variations of it for that. This has kind of got a lot going on. Interestingly, I read the word short straight away, but then when I looked at it more, I found it harder to read, which was interesting. That is interesting. I'm not too keen on this kind of stuff. It's making my brain have to work too hard to see it, but maybe that's the point. Again, this is kind of more in the realms of page design and layout and, graphic design more than a logo. Although it may be a logo, it's pushing the boundaries on what I would class as a traditional logo. Cryptoautism saying I just don't like the colours too much. David, I can't read the text under the Nina signature. Not enough contrast in my opinion. And Crypto's saying way too busy. I don't mind the colours. I think they give a calming feel to it. But yeah, this maybe it would have been better in the darker green than this really light sort of salmon pink up here. And typography takes shape. Once again, we see wordmark logos taking center stage, with the logos lettering communicating their brand personalities. These logos come in two varieties. Logos where the typography reigns in the imagery, providing an emblem-like shape for the logo, and logos where the typography is nestled within the imagery, providing it with structure and shape. I'm a big fan of all typography design, so this type of stuff is really nice to me. It's just like the simplicity of it. This has a real organic kind of heritage retro feel to it. The print effect helps with that as well. I quite like this. Let me zoom in a bit more again for you guys. I like this burgled logo. Yes, the text has been split, so it's Burr Gled, but I like that. I like the black and the yellow works really well. I like that. It's really quirky. I do like that. Not keen on the Mountain Bazaar one. I get what they're doing with that, but that one's not for me. And this one's, like a really traditional etching design. So much detail in there. The text is a bit strange here for me. The roots part. Maybe because the O has been rotated as it goes round. Both of the O's have been rotated. This first O, I don't know. It feels to me like it needs to be rotated to the right just a little bit. It just feels like it's throwing off the word a little bit for me here. The wellness bar reads fine, but the double O seems a bit strange to me. Some old-fashioned bottles with some logos on it there. Yeah, so these look like older brands, even though they're probably new. They've got that sort of retro heritage feel to it. Grunge. We've just seen how designers are paying homage to the 30s, 70s, the noughties. But these aren't the only decades whose aesthetic are in the spotlight this year. Designers are also throwing it back to the 90s. So essentially what they're saying is what we've kind of been saying, is that you can pull from history and make it fit. So I could understand if it was a trend, if out of all of these the 1970s was one of the trends. But when you have a trends article that says, oh, the 30s are a trend, the 70s are a trend, the 90s are a trend, I don't get that. Should it not just be that history is a trend? The history of design is a trend. I don't know. It just sometimes feels like these articles. Well, you need to get readers onto articles, and so you need to create stuff. But I just sometimes wonder if they're just being created for the sake of it. There are no real trends as such, but it gets eyes onto a page, and that's what counts. Maybe I'm just being very pessimistic about it all, but like I say, I'm not one for trends anyway. You need to be careful with them. I love seeing them in graphic design and stuff like that, but for logos, just be careful. Just be careful. So yeah, the grunge was going to come in almost like letterpress, using letterpress blocks and getting that nice texture. I always think it works really well in sans serif text like this, because sans serif text can sometimes feel too clean. And when you add a bit of grunge to it, a bit of texture to it, it can really, really give that text impact. So sometimes, if you're creating a logo and you're looking at it on your page and maybe doing it in black and white because you want to focus on the form of the logo before you get into any color, and you're maybe not feeling it, just get some textures. So if it's black and white, all you want is to get some white textures and just overlay some white textures onto it. And sometimes that can just be all the difference. Try some halftone, try some speckled scratches, some lines, just mess around, and sometimes happy coincidences can happen and you can end up with someone that you wouldn't have thought of, or something that you wouldn't have drawn, because we can all lay stuff out and we can all draw stuff in our sketchbooks, but if you try to kind of draw it with a texture, it probably isn't going to look the way that you want it to look or expect it to look. So I often do that. If I get a little bit stuck with something, I'll just start to throw some textures onto it, see what it looks like, and that can sometimes be enough to take me down the right design route for it. I kind of like this, I think it says Ripro. Yeah, up the top here we've got Ripro. I like the kind of fuzzy sort of effect there, like it's been an ink print on a piece of parchment that's got a lot of fibers in it, and the ink's kind of gone along the fibers to give it that blurred look. I really like that. That's nice. I've not been checking out for Esteban's ratings. Okay, so for 7 it was a thumbs up. 8 he was rocking the 8. 9 meh. 10's got a thumbs up. David's asking, do I design my own typefaces? I do not. I tried it once, but it takes a lot of time. Trying to design a typeface gives you a ton of respect for the people that do take the time, especially to design the good ones. There's a lot that you'll get on places like DaFont that look great. You know, they look really quirky or whatever, and they look great. But then when you actually try and use them, they've not been designed that well. You know, kerning can be off, and some letters just don't work together. But the ones that are done really well, and you know, they've got multiple glyphs, and they've thought of everything. The time that it takes to do that is, you know, I've got so much respect for them. Like I say, I did try to do it once, but I just haven't got the time, and I just gave up. I just gave up on it. I think what I ended up doing was, I think I was working on a brand, and I thought it'd be really cool to create a typeface specifically for this brand so that the client would have their own typeface. I think I got as far as creating the letters that spelled out their name, and I stopped there. I just basically created the logo out of handcrafted letters that I'd done, and I didn't go any further with the rest of the alphabet or the numbers. But maybe at some point in the future, if I got enough downtime, it would be something that I would like to do. I would certainly feel a sense of fulfillment from doing it, because I know how long it takes. Dave's saying, your words remind me of the Line of Duty logo, bullet shot in the window to represent the O. This Rain logo looks like a black metal band to me, black metal band's logo. Here we've got a really grungy effect on this. Looks like an American eagle, because you can see the laurel wreath here, and then we've got some arrows coming out the other side. That's quite a nice effect on that as well. It's established in 2002, the business, but it gives it a heritage feel as well. This kind of reminds me of MTV for some reason. I think as MTV I did a video that has MTV logo examples where they would do different things with it. It reminds me of that. So that's taken us 45 minutes to go through that one site. So what we'll do is we'll quickly go through the other 3 to see if there are any trends in those ones that weren't mentioned in this one, and see how many have been mentioned, to see if everyone's on the same page, or if they've all got different ideas, and we're going to have 60 different logo trends for 2022. So let's go on to the Envato Tuts blog, and let's see what they're looking at. So, are they just going straight in here? Okay, so let's see. The year has seen a number of major businesses looking to reintroduce simplicity into their brand. Burger King, Peugeot, Renault, Pfizer have all introduced rebrands with a sleeker, simpler aesthetic in 2021. What's the reason for this? A priority for logos that function more successfully in the digital sphere, with many brands requiring ultra-simple designs that can be used as app or social icons. And that's true. That's generally why a lot of the big brands are doing that. The interesting thing is as well is that some of those brands that are creating these much more simplified logos they're not ditching the previous logo. They're still using that in the situations where it can be used, but they're using the new one solely on smartphone apps, and where, you know, maybe on their social media platforms where the icons have to be really, really small. So they're actually playing with both. They're not just completely throwing out the one that they had before, which I think can be a good thing. and because it allows, still allows people that connection through the old logo into the new one. But then there are some brands that have just completely thrown the previous one out and are only using the new one. So Crypto Artist was saying, how does one show art ideas to a big company? So you just kind of talking about how do you kind of show your work in order to get a job with the company? Or do you mean, are you wanting to show off your art so that a company can sell your art? That's two different things. So, so option one, you want to go to some design studios, show your work in the hopes that you may get a job with them. Option two, show your work to an art studio that can sell your art. And to be honest, the answer is the same for both. Just, try to find out who's the person to contact there. Sometimes you have to phone, email, and ask if you can send in your work. If it's somewhere local, maybe just drop by and leave a portfolio of work with them. Otherwise, you're going to have to email and hope that someone opens the email. Okay, so Crypto is saying that it's art to sell it. That's not the first one. I probably would have been able to give you some advice because I run my own agency, so I know how people contact me. But when it comes to art, that's not really my area. You'd probably want to speak to other artists. So maybe find some Facebook groups and see what they're doing. But yeah, selling art is a different space really. And funnily enough, one of the things that I was going to talk about today, I'm not going to talk about it now. I've had a rethink on it. Was NFTs. I was going to have a little bit of a chat about NFTs today. Digital art and on the blockchain and crypto. I've been getting into that space over the last 3 months purely out of interest to see, how is it going to affect brands and businesses. Right now, it's still in its very, very early stages. It's a bit like the Wild West in terms of everything that's going on there. 1 week inside the NFT space feels like a year. It moves so fast. Everything's changing all the time. But that's definitely one way or one area that, I think NFTs are going to help people like yourself. I mean, your username is Crypto Artismo, so I'm assuming you have some knowledge of crypto and NFTs. But I think NFTs are going to be huge for artists like yourself, where very quickly, as an artist, if you create a painting and you sell that painting, generally, if I sold that painting for £1,000 to someone else, they then sell it later for £100,000. I don't see any of that £100,000. I only make £1,000. With NFTs and the digital contracts that are written up when the NFT is created, if I sell my NFT piece of art for £1,000 to someone else, and they then sell that NFT onto someone else, I can have written in the contract that I get a percentage of that resale price. So I will always be rewarded for that piece of art that I have. Now, there is lots of things, you hear people saying, NFTs, it's just, you're paying stupid money for a JPEG. I could take a screenshot of that JPEG and I own it as well. It's not as simple as that. Yes, you can have a JPEG of that, but I'm finding out that NFTs are now much more about the community that's being built around the specific art or the artist themselves. And so when you buy an NFT, yes, you're buying the piece of art, but what you're also doing is you're buying a membership to that community, and owning that piece of art will get you access to Discord servers. It'll get you access to maybe some events that will take place in real life. It can get you discounts on future purchases. So it acts like it acts like a membership card. So it's more than just having, a JPEG. Yes, the sums of money that are being paid for some of these projects, like the Bored Apes Yacht Club, people are paying millions of dollars for, to have one of those Bored Ape pieces of art. But owning it gets you a lot more than just the JPEG. It's now, I think there are certain NFTs that are being called blue chip NFTs. So these are the ones which are blowing up, and people are paying silly money for them because there's a prestige around it. And it's the same in the traditional art world. It's the same in design. It's why some designers can charge so much money. There's a prestige of being able to say, I own art by this person, or I am part of this community. It's a private membership, and the prestige is there with that. So I kind of talked about NFTs a little bit there, but what I want to do is I want to actually take a look at NFTs in a future live stream and kind of have a look through some of the websites where you can go to, view the projects and the art and, the process of getting into NFTs, because I have purchased a few of my own, and I am now in a few communities, and I'm actually loving it, but it takes up a lot of your time. But I'm learning a lot of stuff that will be useful because brands are starting to move into that space, and that's kind of causing a bit of a rift as well, because in the NFT space, which is Web3, which is very much all about decentralization, and nobody really, there's no big corporations that own things. You now have these big corporations moving into that space. Some are welcoming it, because if big brands come in, it means that they will bring more people, because the bigger brands will mean people will trust it more. Well, right now, I've said it's like the Wild West, and there's a lot of scams going on, people losing money. The big brands coming in can bring in a certain amount of, I can't think of the word, I don't want to say authority, but kind of normalizing it a little bit, and that will bring more people in, which means there'll be more money in the NFT space. So there's kind of pros and cons to it. It's really, really interesting. But you do have to be careful. If you get into it, you do have to, take your time with it. Let's see. Yeah, so crypto knows about the NFT space. It's a whole other world, It is a whole other world. And I do think it will become part of the normal day-to-day part of design and stuff, so I'm kind of excited to be in that quite early. So let's continue down these trends here. So like they're saying, they're talking about minimalism. This one here, this triangle color one, I see tons of stuff like this on Dribbble. When I'm going through Dribbble and looking at work, there's a lot of this kind of layered shadowing. I do like it. I do like that style. But I think that to me is a great example of a trend that for me locks my head into a certain time period, a certain sort of span of a few years, and so that would look dated quite quickly. Stencil logos emerged as a sub-trend. I've done a couple of logos like this myself for some clients. Worked really, really well. Gave sort of a high-end look, but very modern. So it's using, serif type, but it has a really modern feel to it. Kind of sort of leading edge for the clients that I used it for. That's not really the norm for the type of logos. So using that worked really, really well for them. We've got some abstract simplified icons here. So this is then moving into the list now. So 90s nostalgia, we saw that on the other one. So that's one which has come in there. So they're in agreement with that one. Minimalist monograms. So this wasn't in the last one. Geometric, chunky, and subtly iconographic. The circle element blinks in animation. The monogram is utterly minimalist and recognizably legible. So you can see here, this is where really simple monogram logos will work well on small app icons and still be really, really legible. Will work really well in letterpress. Lots of different situations. We've got some embossing here as well. What I will say is that these types of mock-ups don't really show these logos off in their best light. They look a little bit tacky. Maybe it's just the mock-ups, but they don't look like the best mock-ups. Here, they're probably because they're mock-ups that we see all the time as designers, and that's something as well that I need to always think about, is that for me as a designer, I see these mock-ups and stuff all the time, but if you're presenting a logo to a client, they won't have seen these mock-ups before, and so for them, it's going to let them see the logo in a really new environment and how it could look sitting on their desk. So sometimes you need to take yourself out of being a designer and going, oh, I've seen this before, to the viewer that you're showing it to your customer, your client. They won't have seen it before, so it's new to them. But when it comes to your own portfolio, you want to try to mix your portfolio up. You don't want to have, if you've got 5 logos and you've got case studies for each one, you don't want each case study to use exactly the same templates. You want to make sure that you mix it up so that it looks different when you go through the different case studies. Because I've seen all of these for download someplace else. Juicy color, that wasn't on the other one. I do like this. I do like really nice, vibrant color mixes. Not every client's going to go for that, though. You have to have a certain type of brand to be able for this to work. This is for the National Gallery of Art, so that's going to work really well for them. Can work really good for products because you want your product to stand out on the shelf. So if you can, add that vibrancy and some really quirky color contrasts or color palettes that work really well and can sell the product that you've got up there on the shelf, then that can work really well. This chubby fun happy is close to border with the contrast. It is on my screen anyway. I'm looking at it on my secondary screen, which is a different color setup, and it doesn't look as bright as it does on my main monitor here. Again, more bright colors with this fish color one, and then for this web page here, nice color palette, nice bright, vibrant color palette. Works really well with these images. I like the way that they've laid that out. That's really nice. So yeah, I like this one, but again, it's not going to suit every brand. You're going to be lucky if you can find a brand that will work with. A simple serif type, so just a classic, using a classic serif type, no bells and whistles, no complicated logos around it, just nice and clean. Again, that's going to work really, really well. But you have to, I think, so the head hammer, for example, is a label on a bottle. So it works really well on that bottle. If you've got a logo and you're just going to use just one simple piece of type, you're going to have to make sure that you have strength around the rest of the branding to let that do its work, to really lift it. Otherwise, it can just look boring, and you don't want it to be boring. You want it to have life and have an impact. Elegant fluid type. I think that was in the other one as well, because this looks like the Draco one that we looked at, where it's all kind of been moved around. So yeah, I've seen a lot of the fonts, a lot of typography like this on a lot of typography sales websites. A lot of this stuff goes in their packs. Photo overlay and totemic logos. totemic logos, so using animals as totems and things like that, but also having the photographs come through. That's similar to one of the trends that we saw, but the difference being on the other one, it was much thicker logos, so you weren't seeing as much of the photo. But this is quite a nice effect. Using a lot of animals here. Some and really simplifying them down, which is a skill in itself. Simplifying an animal down and making it still look really recognizable. I've tried that on some animal logos before and not been too successful, shall we say. Okay, so that was a fairly quicker one. We'll probably just do this one here. We'll just do this last one, this third one, and then we'll move on to having a look at David's logo. So this one's saying tall logos. Narrow and vertical tall logos are back in style to break the ideal horizontal shape that we've all got used to. Same as with business cards, going vertical is a great way to stand out. This, however, is a two-edged sword, as being different has benefits and disadvantages for the same reason. Some clients and audiences will love the fact that you're different, some will not appreciate it. It all depends on the brand strategy. This is the first site of the three that's actually talked about using the right logo to fit the brand strategy. I'm so happy to see that. Because they're right. It's going to work for some, and it's not going to work for others. So you need to make sure that you're in the camp of this is going to work for us. So tall logos, so essentially vertically built logos. Interestingly enough, this green financial center one, I'm working on a logo. I was working on it today, and it's a similar makeup to that one. Symbol there, and then stacked text sitting alongside it. And I think when you're creating a stacked logo, more often than not, you can move the symbol to the side and have the text, so you can increase the horizontal width if need be, depending on the space that's required. So they can be fairly flexible, and playing around with them. Not a fan of this Sterlo logo. I think this is an example of a color trend, which I think is starting to, I don't know, get a little bit predictable, especially when it comes to kind of tech apps. They're using these great color gradients. I don't know, just it seems to date things a little bit for me. I like to see more sort of flat, bold colors. I think that has more impact. Candy colors are coming in apparently in 2022. So these give a fun, friendly feel to a brand when you've got these bright sort of candy colors, as they call it. Really adds a vibrancy, which gives just that little bit of a spark and energy to the brand, which can be good. Will work mostly, again, these bright colors will work really well on screen and on smartphones, but sometimes you have to be careful, because when you come to print it, unless you're using Pantone spot colors for that vibrancy, you're going to struggle when it comes to printing in CMYK, because it just can't replicate that real vibrancy that you've got, especially in some of these examples here. This Family Mart one you'd probably be fine with, but this Tupole one, there's like some really vibrant greens and blues and oranges in here, indigos and violets, that you may struggle with when it comes to CMYK. Same with this Air Kit one. I'm not sure if some of these would work very well. And they're using gradients with them too. So you'll find as well that with CMYK printing, some of those gradients on screen will look great and they'll blend really well. But when you try to print them, they can come out quite muddy and flat. So gradients are always a risk in that respect as well. But if it's going to be online only, you can do what you want. It's not really a problem. Yeah, lots of really bright colours and gradients going on here. Outline logos. Outline style in general has been gaining a lot of usage right next to flat design, but unlike the latter, it keeps getting more and more popular. So outline logos, also kind of known as, could be monoline, where the weight of the line doesn't change. It's the same thickness all the way through the logo, has been popular for quite some time. You see it in a lot of crests and badges. It can work really, really well with that. I created a monoline typography logo for a client just at the end of last year, and their brand's being, worked on, and it's looking really, really good. A lot of monoline elements to support the typographic logo. Works really, really well. And this kind of stuff can work well in today's world for really, really minimal sizes, and works really well at large sizes as well. You've got no problem with reproduction, unless you've got a lot of lines really quite close to one another. When you start to make it smaller, they can all kind of either merge into one solid shape or create an effect on your eye that's unpleasant. The lines just look really, really weird. So sometimes for the smaller version, you may need to take some lines out and simplify it down even further. But that will take experiment when you're working on it. So I'm a fan of this. I like the outline or monoline logos. Serif logos, I think, were in the other one as well, using serif type. So you get some really nice looking serif type, which looks a bit retro but modern at the same time. And depending on the effect that you use with it, then it could be really effective. I like what they've done with this Luna logo here. I like that they've got this sort of monoline circle around it, but then they've brought it in so it reflects the look of the type as well. That's quite a nice touch. I do like that. And then they've got these wavy shapes as well and depth to it. It's a nice design. Some of the fonts are really, really nice, but I don't know if, like me, when you're looking for fonts and you go on to sites like Envato Elements, which is usually my go-to site, and you go to the fonts page and you see all of these fonts, and they've all got, quirky names, and they've used the font for the name, and it looks amazing. And then when you get that, you think that looks really great, and then you get that and download that font, and you type out the name that you want, it often doesn't look as nice. It's like they've deliberately designed the font to fit the name of the font, because they've got all the right glyphs, and the G's look lovely, and the L fits around the O really nicely, and then you type out the word that you want, and none of the really nice shapes are in there. I find that happens to me a lot. I don't know if it happens to anyone else. Then I have to go back and look for other fonts. I think it's quite clever. It's a good way to sell the font. Make it look its absolute best. I mean, that's how we sell products, isn't it? Is you make it look its absolute best. But I do find that a bit frustrating at times when I go to get fonts. So there's lots of nice designs here as well. Let's check up on the chat. Reddit's come in. Hey from France. Hey back at you from Scotland. I see further up as well, Suraj has joined. Let's see what's saying. Esteban's saying, I want my logo to work first and foremost as letterpress. I love any logo that can be punched on metal or burnt into wood. We've all got things that we love, about logos, and we'd love for everything that we do to fit our own personal tastes. Unfortunately, as a logo designer, we can't really... Well, that's a lie, because there are logo designers who get paid because of their very specific style. But, those are few and far between. For the rest of us, we do need to be more flexible and be able to kind of create logos that fit our clients. If you can build yourself up to being the guy to go to for logos that can be punched into metal and burnt into wood, then Estevan's your guy. That's who you want to go to for those types of logos. Make a name for yourself in that space. David's saying those candy logos remind me of Woolworth's pick and mix, showing his age now. You are. It's not. It doesn't feel that long ago, but I think Woolworths were sort of at their height in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, you're maybe not that old, but they were on the downslide in the 90s. That's for sure. David saying Envato don't have a test drive feature for fonts though, do they? No, they don't. And I created a review video of Envato Elements just before the end of the year, and that was kind of my biggest negative. I love Envato Elements. I think it's really good. I think it's amazing value for what you get. But if you go to, for example, Creative Market and look at the fonts there, yes, you can test it. So you can type in the word that you want, or maybe so let's say it's the name of a business. Let's say it was Pixels Inc. or Rock Your Brand. You can go and type in Rock Your Brand, and it will show you that font, show you the word in that font. And Envato Elements don't have that ability. And I think if Envato Elements introduce that capability, they will be very hard to beat as a stock products website, because I think for me that's really one of the only things that they're missing right now, and I really, really hope that they do implement that. Crypto saying he's in South Carolina, so you'll be what? You CST, Central Time, Pacific Time. You'll be what? 6 or 8 hours behind where I am in Scotland. Lowercase logos. So when it comes to lowercase, I find using lowercase is quite good for a lot of tech companies. Just feels more human, more friendly than all upper caps. Feels more open, and just seems to fit that space. I think because so many tech companies do use the lowercase, it's become fitting for that sector. And so if a tech company comes to me, lowercase is usually how I first start to think about designing their name. And obviously, as we are a tech society, there's going to be more and more companies coming out who are in the tech space, and so I could definitely see that lowercase is going to be a trend for 2022, because that's a form of typography that works really, really well for those types of companies. So yeah, definitely I'd agree with that one. Art Deco, I don't think has been mentioned. That's an interesting one. We did see some of the, I think they called it rubber hose or whatever. That leans into this a little bit, but it's a very different aesthetic to Art Deco. So this is interesting to me. I'm a fan of Art Deco, but I didn't know it was going to be a trend in 2022. So that's news to me. Neon vision and holographic logos, especially great for dark backgrounds. They would pretty much need to be on dark backgrounds, I think, to get that colour to really pop through. While Art Deco makers come back with clean and elegant geometry, neon is all about bringing the 80s. So there we go. We're pretty much getting every decade now as being a trend for 2022. That's quite nice. I quite like that Karoo. I thought it was an H at first, but obviously it's a K. A lot of motion going on as well. A lot of motion graphics going on. Not something which I can do myself, but I now have been speaking to a few motion graphics designers, because I do believe that my clients are going to be wanting to see their logos in motion. So that's also something else which I have to bear in mind when I'm designing logos, is I have to have in the back of my mind, how could this animate? How, what would this work like? Now, obviously, the motion graphics guys, that's their skill, and they can take anything and and turn it into motion graphics. But I think if you're designing a logo, if you keep in mind that this logo may well be animated, then that's a good place to be, a good space to be in when you're designing, because that may help you with the concept, because you may already be thinking about, well, if this element comes in and that element comes in and they come together, then you could be thinking along the lines, well, what does each element of the logo represent? And you can start to tie things into the brand strategy so that, each element can represent maybe a different customer segment or a different product segment, and you're bringing them all together into the logo to form this one complete brand. And that can help you with your storytelling when you're presenting the logo concept to your client. If you can almost storyboard these story elements to them and tell the story of what all of this means, and it comes together, and say to them, we could actually have this animated on your website or, wherever at the start of a presentation, and it shows your logo coming together. A lot of clients get really excited about that stuff. So it's a good thing to have in the back of your mind when you're creating logos. So that's cool. Scroll down through that. A lot of bright colors going on here. Cartoon logos. This Monster Pony one just reminds me of Monster Jobs a little bit. So that takes me back to the early 2000s. I like simple stuff, and depending on what it means by cartoon, there's so many different cartoon styles that it's quite broad. So some will be good and some will be a bit of a miss. I like this El Muerto hot sauce one. That kind of speaks to me. And some of these logos will speak to you more than they speak to me. And that's the thing about, brand and branding, is that we all have our different tastes. You can't please everyone all of the time. So you have to make sure that, you go, well, these are the type of people I want to please, so this is the type of logo that we should have. And I also like this Cub Creative. I like the bear, just like the simple bear's head. And then just a really, really simple typography using 2 different weights of that in the letters there. It's effective and works. And some of the other stuff I'm not too keen on, like this Pepper's Palace. I'm not a fan of this kind of stuff. It's not for me. Okay, so we spent a bit of time there looking through that. So and we got some people's thumbs up, thumbs down, not too sure, but there's a lot of trends there that cover all of the bases. So this is where I don't really get the trends thing, is because there's something for everyone in there. But one better way to look at it is, rather than kind of predicting, because we can all try to predict, is to look back. And Logo Lounge, the website Logo Lounge, Bill Gardner, who runs that, he produces a logo report at the end, near the end of the year, based on logos that are being submitted to Logo Lounge for their books. And I think that's a better way to kind of sort of see what's happening. And I think he'd be in the best place to maybe say, well, here's a trend that I've spotted that's coming up towards the end of 2021, which will probably go forward in 2022. So if you go to logolounge.com, I'm not sure if you can I think you can get access to the report for free. I don't think you need to be a member. So it's it's maybe worth going to Logo Lounge to have a look and see what was hot in 2021, because the chances are it's probably going to trend over into 2022. Okay. So let's jump over to David's logo. Kind of been waiting, you've been waiting a while to go through this. So this is the previous version of the logo, just before David gets worried. This is the version of the logo that we had a look at last time, but this is the latest text that you sent me, David. So I'm just going to read through this again for anyone that isn't aware of what you'd created before. So the brand name is 10 Deuce Poker, but it's like 10-2 poker, but it's pronounced 10 Deuce. A 2 in poker is known as a deuce, or a deuce, depending on how you pronounce it. So it's an online poker gaming app, and app is targeted at 21 to 40-year-old men. This was interesting because in your first one, it was 21 to 50, 21 years to 50 years. So you've taken, I was within the age group. You've now taken me out of that age group, and that hurts, man. That hurts. So the app is targeted at 21 to 40-year-old men of various economic standing, as it offers various games that cost as little as $1 or several $1,000s to enter. The audience includes gamblers, sportsmen, and games enthusiasts. Brand personality is sleek, modern, and competitive. And he's put in, I've corrected the mistake that I made in the first version of the logo. Omitting the signature and expecting the design to work on concept alone was a poor decision. We'll see what that means when we look at the new one. The brand quality is entertaining, stimulating, and rewarding. The font used is Montserrat, which is a modern, bold sans serif that I feel suits the brand. The signature incorporates 2 different weights for contrast and hierarchy. This resubmission utilizes 3 colors: red and black to represent the colors of the playing card suits, and green, which stands for the felt used on most poker tables. I hadn't read this. I've looked at the new logo and I hadn't read this, and that's answered a question that I was going to give you, so points for that. Other information, 10 Deuce Poker is a fictitious online poker app. People can open an account, deposit money, and play a variety of poker games against players from all over the world. The app is named after the Doyle Brunson hand, 10 Deuce, with which legendary gambler Brunson famously won the World Series of Poker main event in 76 and 77. I created the 2 from the outline of a heart. When that heart is split, edited, and mirrored, the heart remains in the negative space. So, David's already using one of our logo trends for 2022, which is negative space. So you're on trend. So this was this here is what David submitted to me the first time around, and I'm trying to remember what feedback I gave you. But I think the biggest part for me was the fact that it's called 10 Deuce Poker. I didn't feel that from the logo people would get that, and you've kind of talked about that here, saying that you left that off of the logo and it was maybe not the right decision. And I just thought, and by the way, I'll just kind of zoom this was David's thinking in the construction of the 2 with the heart. And I liked the logo, but I just was a bit concerned about the name and how people would interpret the logo, whether they would see more of the heart, which is still relatable to the card suit, or would they see the 2s and would they know that it was 10 Deuce, or is it just 10 heart poker? That was my concern. So what we'll do is we'll move over and we'll look at the update that David has brought in. So let's bring this across. Let me just check the chat. I've not checked it for a little bit. Okay, so we're just talking about the logo trends that went back there. Okay, right. So first thing that I notice is that you've thinned down the weight of the 2. So it's a much lighter weight. And then you've brought in the 10 Deuce and you brought in the poker. So straight away, that's helping me to know the name of the brand. If this brand became super famous, that's when you can start to lose the name. So like McDonald's can get away with the yellow arches, Nike can get away with the swoosh, Adidas can get away with the 3 stripes. But in the beginning, they couldn't really do that. I mean, if you look at the Nike logo, for example, the swoosh was, the name was embedded into this, it overlapped the tick, the swoosh, and then it was over time they could remove, and they separated it out, and you can get rid of one and just keep that that simple mark. You're not quite there yet, and so it's you can do it if you want. You can do it, but I do think you need to then have a lot of marketing behind that to make people aware of what the brand is actually called. So I think this is a very good move, bringing that back in here. The introduction of the green was interesting. Like I say, I looked at it and I was like, what's the green got to do with anything? But then, of course, it's the felt, or is it the baize that they call it? Is it felt baize from the tables? And that is a key component. I'm not sure if it's always green. Is it always green? Because I think I've seen some red ones and I've seen some blue ones as well. So in a way, I'm not entirely sure if the green is a good addition to it or not. Because I think most people they're very familiar with the black and red suits of cards. I actually felt that that's probably a stronger element to it than bringing the green in. Or if you were going to bring the green in, maybe what would be nice, just because actually I was going to do something anyway. So David's saying the tables are usually green. It's I've maybe just seen it in some really terrible, low class casinos that I've been in over the years. They can't afford the professional green. They've just gone for cheap blue or something. But one thing I was going to say was, I think your leading between the 10 deuce and the poker is quite tight. It feels really, really tight, really close. So I would, I wonder if I can ungroup this. Ungroup. Nope. Come on, release clipping mask. Here we go. So I would let that just, it doesn't take much, but just let it breathe a little bit. Don't have it too tight. And I think you're just saying, David's saying there in the chat that he's brought the green into contrast with the other two. And I think that's a really great point, because now I see that first two because it's in the right orientation, but then you kind of look and you go, oh, it's the two flipped that's in green, and then you've got that negative space heart as well, which comes across for the suite. So I think everything you've done here has definitely improved the reading of what everything means, and that's the whole point of it. But I do think your leading could just be a little bit looser on that, to just let it breathe a little bit. One of the things that I was going to say was if you wanted to, for example, I think what you said is right. I think it does add contrast, but let's say you kept that. This is me moving into just messing around with your logo now, and undoing your work. But let's say you were to keep the green logo, the green 2 as a red one. So you've still got that. You've got that red heart, the full red heart there. Because I think bringing in the word deuce, actually a lot of people know that means 2, so they will start to see the 2 there. And then if you wanted to bring in some green, this may not work. You could have it so that let's move this down a little bit. If you wanted to bring green in, you could bring green in almost as a divider line. I think I'm just making the logo far too busy now. so you've got that flat line as if it was the table, the dealing table. Let me just get rid of this out of the way just so you can see it. But I think I'm maybe just I'm adding things in that really probably just adds noise. I think that just adds noise to your logo. I don't think it enhances it in any way, really. I just wanted to see how that would work with that. Crypto saying green and red together remind me right away of the Mexican flag. Yeah, it does. It is the Mexican flag colours, and then we've got it we've got the logo sitting on again, one of the trends that was there. Having images coming through the logo. So you're 2 for 2 on the 2022 logo trends, and you're also, and I meant to mention this actually. I was on LinkedIn the other day, and someone had created, and I can actually do it with because you've got all of the elements that's needed. Had done a Happy New Year post, and the weights are going to be off because this is going to be a lot thinner. But they'd done a Happy New Year post, and it was 2022, and they'd done it like that. And my first thought that went through my head was, that's David's logo. You've used David's logo. But I just thought it was interesting. So you're not only on trend for two trends for 2022, you are also setting standards. So people are influenced by what you're doing. I'm sure they must have watched my review of your logo and thought, that's a great idea, I'm going to use that. So well done. Well done on that for being an influencer and having people to do that. But they used the mirror too for the heart as well. So there's obviously other people thinking along the same lines as yourself for that. So overall, I think it's now David's saying, haha, I'll sue them. You don't want to be getting into that territory. I think it's great improvements, and I think really for me, I think just increase the leading between 10 deuce and poker, and maybe just decrease the size of the 10 a touch. Nothing crazy, but just give it a little bit more sort of space, a little bit of more breathing space between the inside edges of this heart. Again, nothing massive. The same as the leading. Nudge that down a little bit and just bring that 10 in just a tiny, tiny little bit. It's amazing how these little tiny touches can instantly make the logo look correct or look right, because it's now optically balanced to someone's eye, and it just feels right. And that's a skill that you pick up over time when you're creating stuff, is that it feels right. You might be like, oh, that doesn't fit a grid, or it should be in the grid and it should be here. Not necessarily. Sometimes when you put stuff into a grid, it doesn't work and it feels too contrived, or just things just don't look right. They don't feel right. Take it out of the grid and move it to where you think it looks right for the eye, and it just feels way more natural and kind of works better. Some logos work really well on a grid. Others need that freedom of manipulation that looks right to the eye for it to work. So let's see. Esteban saying, what about making a logo with 10 number 2s, like an ace of spades with 2s or something else? Just throwing it out there. There's a lot of stuff you can do, but I like this, and all, I think it's just so good when someone comes back, and they're really willing to listen to what everyone's feedback is, and they'll try stuff, because you don't have to. You can go away, no, I'm happy with it as it is. And and it's always good when something comes back in again, and we can see that things have been changed. But I think what's good as well is that it's this one kind of it would work quite nicely on on the back of a card, because you're using. I say, is that a third trend? Did we see stacked logos as a third trend? Have I mentioned that already? Then what was the no? So what were the trends that we said that you followed? There was the image one. There's the stacked one. What was the other one? What was the first trend that I said that you'd followed? Maybe it was the stacked one. I'm maybe repeating myself. But if it is something else, then that's 3 trends that you're following apparently. But good job. I appreciate you sending that in. For anyone else, negative space, that was it. Yeah, Esteban, well done, well caught. So 3. You've got 3 of the 2022 trends going on in this logo. Well done. I'm going to have to up my game now and go back and look at the logos that I'm working on for clients and see if I can see what's missing, what should be in there. But like I say, I'm not going to put trends in just for the sake of it. But I do think it's awesome that your logo here, that you started towards the end of last year, maybe you're working on it longer, I don't know, fulfills some of those trends, which is really, really cool. So let's so if you want to submit a logo for critique the same as David has, then what you can do is, I need to find my website, is you can go to the Rock Your Brand website, and it's rockyourbrand.co.uk /logo-critique-form. Not the best URL in the world. I maybe need to change that. And I should have had a graphic to come up on screen, but what I'll do is I'll type it in. Copy and paste it into the chat, so that anyone watching this can kind of review the chat and they'll see it in the chat window. I think also ryb.rocks/logo works as well. If you put that into your, you can put HTTPS in front of it, or you can just put that into your web browser and that will go there. But yeah, if you have a, it's logo designs that I review, Crypto. So if that's what you want to submit, great. I'm not reviewing artwork or sort of graphic design pieces. It's logo critiques. But feel free to go to the form, send it through, and I will receive it. And then what I can do is I can get back to you and let you know whether it's something that we can review on the channel. Otherwise, I might be able to kind of spend 10-15 minutes and give you some feedback, depending on what my workload's like at the time. Okay, so great. So Crypto's saying that it is a logo, so that's fine. So hopefully we'll see that on the channel on a future live stream, which would be great. So one last thing, very quickly then, is Discord. So if any of you want to guinea pig this for me and try and test it out. So let me just see if I can bring... Where is it? Where's my Discord? All right, let's see if I can switch this on. Okay, so this is what Discord looks like when you get into the group. So this is the Rock Your Brand channel here. It's not showing my mouse cursor, but top left, you see this little symbol here. This is the Rock Your Brand channel or Discord server. This little symbol here is is a hint of something which I will be revealing at some point soon. When you first click on the link, so I'm going to give you the link in the chat now. So I'm going to click on. So I've popped a link into the chat. So Discord works inside your web browser, and it also works as an app on your smartphone. I generally use it 50-50 between the two. With I'm out and about, I'll use it on my phone or whatever I'm here. So I talked about NFTs earlier on. So pretty much NFT project has a Discord server. So I'm in a lot of Discord servers. You can see I've got 7 notifications here from some of those. But if you've ever used sort of anything like Slack, for group chats and, messaging and stuff, it's kind of similar to Slack. Obviously, it has its own capabilities and different ways of doing things. And, I'm trying to figure all that out myself. It's fine being in someone else's Discord channel and just having to type and things. But when you're setting up your own, there's lots of commands and stuff. So when you're in Discord, you can use the @ symbol and then type someone's name, and it will highlight their name in your message, and that will ping them to say that they've been mentioned. And there's lots of other things that you can do. So there are bots that run. So when you're in Discord and you're talking, when you're chatting in there, you're actually gaining points, or you'll gain experience from being within the Discord, and you rack up points for every message that you leave, and that levels you up. And so you level 1, level 2, level 3. And what I can do is I can actually reward you for reaching higher levels. So for example, when you join, the first thing you'll get to is a verification screen. So I think you have to agree to some rules, and then you'll get taken to a channel, and I think you have to click on a tick mark or something, and that will verify that you're a real person, because there are a lot of bots that go through Discord channels. So I'm trying to kind of weed out any bots. And so when you land in, you click verify. So when you first get there, you probably won't see any of these channels here on the left-hand side until you verify. And then when you verify, you should see these channels, and then you can go in and interact with them. What I've done is, when you land in there, you'll be given a role, and the role that you're given, so it's like a sort of a tiered role. So I think it's it might just be rock your brand or something like that. That's the role that you get, and that gives you access to these channels. But I've set it up so that if anyone reaches, it's either level 5 or level 10, you'll become a brand rocker. And when you hit that role, you will get access to a channel that will allow you to submit logos for critique. And, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it means that you're into a channel that's people who are dedicated, they're taking part in the Discord, they're helping build the community, and you've built up experience. And so I want to reward that by giving you access to a channel where you can submit, logos. So I'll probably have a channel that's open to everyone to submit logos, a bit like the website, but by submitting your logo as a person who has a higher role, then that gives you more of a chance of getting your logo reviewed, especially if I start to get lots and lots of them. And there's lots of other ways that you can do things. Might be some people who are very active. I can reward them by making them moderators of the server, and there can be different rewards for that. So another example of a reward might be that if you get to level 20, then it might be that once a month I have a 1-hour live stream, and everyone who's level 20 gets to join that live stream, that Zoom call, and we have a video call, not like this, not just chat, but video, so we all join, everyone that's like dedicated and stuff. So I think it'll be a good way to build a really active community. It may work, it may not, but I thought, let's give it a go. some of the channels you'll see here. So let's have a quick look at the channels. So I've got a group of channels called the Learning Center. So I'll post in articles, and I'll post in obviously my YouTube videos and things about graphic design, stuff about brands, stuff about software. So you might be using or found a piece of software that you think's amazing. You would go to the software channel and you would tell people about it. Any hardware that you're using, iPads, whatever, books and resources that you found that are useful or that you would recommend. Then we've got this feedback section. So I've got one for community feedback. So you can drop in your designs and ask for everyone who's in the Discord to give you feedback. What do you think of this? I'd love your opinion. And then this is live stream feedback. So here you can drop stuff in for feedback from me on the live stream. Then we've got a show off your work area. So you can show off your logos, illustrations, web design, UI. So this isn't necessarily, you're not looking for feedback. You just want to say, hey, I've done this cool piece of work. I want to show everybody it. And then we've got the community section. So any sort of memes or funny stuff that you find about the design world. Channels to talk about gaming. You might be a gamer. What music do you like? David, you write music. You play music, so you could talk about music, movies, hobbies. So that's kind of just general stuff. I've got a crypto NFT channel for anyone who wants to talk about that. And I thought it was important to have a mental health channel as well, because, we all struggle with stuff and sometimes we just need a bit of help or a bit of advice. It's not, it's not going to be medical help, but you maybe use apps like, so I use the app Calm on my phone. Just sometimes you need to use that and just kind of chill out a bit. But, I more and more Discord channels and servers I'm in have a mental health area, and I think it's really useful for people. And then we also have, I've not set that up yet, but we will have, I do. We've got some voice channels. So you don't only just have to type, you can also join a chat channel. So obviously, this is online. I'm hoping that all the right people will join. I won't stand for any bullying. I won't stand for, just any nasty stuff. And if anyone joins it and I hear or they're reported, they will be out straight away. Unfortunately, it's the internet and people will slip through the cracks. But I'm hoping that, like I say, we'll build a good community that can moderate all of this stuff and will let me know. And then anyone that's in there longer term, I will, speak to them and ask if they would want to kind of moderate as well. Because, it's a 24/7 environment and I need to sleep at some time. So I can't be awake all the time to monitor this. So that's the downside of it. But I'm hoping that the positivity will outweigh all of that. So Esteban's off. Nice to see you, Esteban. We're coming up to the 2-hour stretch now. So I've given you the link above. So I don't know if anyone's clicked on it yet or has tried to join. But when the stream ends, I'm going to be on Discord for the next couple of hours anyway, because I'll be in some other channels, and I will be checking in on the Rock Your Brand one to see if it's working. If it's not working, then maybe you can post something to me. You could always use my the community channel or leave a comment or something on here. But hopefully it works. I've not had anyone test it yet. You guys are going to test it. If I don't see anybody coming in, then what I'll do is I will ask a friend of mine to check it to see that it is working, just in case it's not working at all. But thank you all again for your time. It was a 2-hour stream again today. I enjoyed looking at the trends. We'll see what happens with that. Thanks again to David for submitting his logo. Crypto, I look forward to getting your submission as well. All I would ask is that in the, let's just quickly jump back to desktop. You'll see here how much information David gave us. If you can give as much information about who your logo is for, all of these areas, that would be really, really useful. I received a submission the other day, and I'm not going to review the logo because there just isn't enough information there. So I'll put in the effort and the time to review logos when people just take a little bit of time to give me the information that I'm requesting. I know you're going to do that though, so it's all good. It's all good. And I look forward to getting to that, and we may review that on the next live stream, or it might be afterwards. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again in a couple of weeks, and I might see you even sooner if you join the Discord channel. So until I see you all next time, stay creative, guys. I'll catch you later.